we are recording. All right. Well, first off, I want to say thanks so much for taking your time of the day to do this interview.
You bet. My pleasure, Josh.
So, first question of the day is how are you doing?
I'm doing real good. I get a chance to talk about my motorcycle racing career, and it's always fun to rehash the old days.
That's always great. Anyway, so let's get things started with their first question, which is, how did you simply get your start in motorsports? Like, what
Well,
gave you that idea?
I didn't really have the idea myself. I grew up essentially at the racetrack. My father was a motorcycle rider in local races in Northern California in the mid to late 60s. I came along in 67 and pretty much grew up at the racetrack. My local track was the Lodi Motorcycle Club, and it was a great place for somebody like me to grow up. And I cut my first laps there, and I just got better and better through the years as an amateur. And by the time I turned 16, I wanted to give a shot at the pro ranks, and it worked out much better than I ever expected.
Fascinating. Quite a catching story too. So, what you told me is that you were inspired by your father, yes?
Well, he was the beginning of it. I raced or started racing when I was 6, but by about the time I was 8, I was faster than my dad, and so he decided to focus on working on my motorcycles to give me a best chance to further my amateur career, in the hopes that maybe one day, I knew pretty early on I wanted to be a pro motorcycle racer in the flat track community, and as a parent, my mom and dad both gave me every opportunity that they could afford, provided me with the best bikes that they could, and I made up for it the rest of it. And it was a good time to grow up and chase dreams, and they certainly made that possible.
Oh, like father, like son. That's what they always say, right?
Well, I hope so.
Anywho, so your next question. So, it seemed from my research, you turned professional in 1985 and won the American Motorcycle Association Rookie of the Year during that same season, yes?
Yes, I did.
So, how did you process these successes at just the age of 18? What were you feeling?
Well, for me, it was, checking off the boxes. If I wanted to be the best, there were a lot of boxes along the way that if you could check them, made it made it likely that you could achieve goals further on down the road. And the rookie of the year came on the heels of a junior national championship, and that was, if you look at the list of rookies of the year through the years, there's quite a few names on there that went on to be either grand national champions in flat track or future world champions in road racing. And I put myself in some pretty elite company, earning that award along the way, and it gave me the confidence moving forward that you know uh, I could I could continue to go down this path and maybe make a living racing motorcycles.
Hmm, fascinating. Very indeed. And another thing too, on top of that, during your motorcycle time. So motorsports can be a dangerous sport and all that with all the stuff that's going on, especially with riding a motorcycle. How did you manage to deal with all that?
Well, I think more than anything was know your capabilities, not necessarily your abilities, but capabilities on a motorcycle. Um, uh, I've always felt that in order to finish first, you first must finish, and I always uh, did my best, whether it was an issue that I had physically or an issue with the motorcycle. And one of my earliest lessons was do whatever you can to finish the race. And I finishing the race was the most important thing, and where you finished was the second most important. And the more races I started to finish, and I started to finish a little further up, the more I got the itch to want to win my share along the way. And when it was all said and done, I won more than maybe I ever expected.
Hmm, very wise words. Very, very wise. Is that something you might want to tell others that's getting into motorsports?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, uh, getting involved in motorsports, whether you're an athlete or whether you're going to be working on equipment that others will risk their lives in, um, whether you're working in media, what have you. Um, some old wise people in the flat track community have said, when you start off, you don't know what you don't know. And if you go in with the idea that that there's a lot to learn along the way, and you will continue to learn and allow yourself to learn throughout your career, it's only going to serve not only yourself but the others that you work with better in the long run.
Indeed. Very, again, very wise indeed. So your next question. So during your time when you were dirt track racing, so during your career span of that, what were some highlights that stood out to you?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I dreamed of winning a Grand National Championship, and fortunately for me, I won 7 of them. Um,
Congrats.
I just wanted one to start with, but once you've won one, you want to win them again. And uh, uh, along the way, with the other professional classes that I participated in along the way, I'm proud to have 15 national flat track championships to my credit, including the 7 Grand Nationals, the Big Daddy ones. And I don't think anybody in the history of motorcycle racing has that many professional championships, and it's something that I think sets me apart from maybe some of my peers. And I hope that people remember that for a while, and maybe someday somebody else will match or exceed that themselves.
Well, I want to say congratulations on your winnings then. Like that was
Thank you.
love the perseverance too with that.
I appreciate it.
So now again with your Grand National Championship, when you first won the Grand National Championship in 1992, what were you feeling? Was there a certain emotion that was like deep inside you?
Well, it was a matter of relief. It was, in 1992, by that time, I was, into my 25th year, 26th year of life. And for the majority of that, that was a goal that I wanted to accomplish. Um, I didn't think it was going to take me another 7 years to get the next one, but it made the next one just as sweet, if not sweeter. It just goes to show that you can, achieve your goals as a kid. Um, but you got to continue to persevere, especially if you want to continue to achieve those goals on a year after year basis. Um, Once you've won the title or accomplished a goal, um, it doesn't mean that it's over. It just means it's the beginning of the next chapter. And my next chapter took a while for it to be completed, and then I got another handful on top of that after that from '01 to '05. So uh, the first one was the hardest one. The second one was really tough, and then they got a little easier for a while. But that's that's part of the evolution as you age in this type of sport. You have to adapt to new racers, new tracks, and you have to adapt to yourself undergoing changes mentally and physically during that whole time in order to continue to stay at the top level. And that's what I learned along the way.
Very good. Very impressive, I must say.
Thank you.
Now, another thing too. So, all the times you've been racing, surely you have a favorite track. Like, is there any that you have in mind that you really want to race on a track multiple times?
Well, I was very fortunate to win, lots of races at a lot of tracks, many of which are still being run at today. the Peoria TT comes in mind. I got my first Grand National win there in 1986 at the age of 19, and I was fortunate enough to win another 12 times on top of that through the years. Um, but if there was any one track that I would be, if I was only allowed to ride one track for the rest of my life, there was a track in Savannah, Georgia that was never on the Grand National schedule. That was a half-mile track that I thoroughly enjoyed riding every time I went there, whether it was testing or doing some preseason races or warm-up races or what have you. It's a track I always thoroughly enjoyed, and if that was the one that I would only be allowed to ride for the rest of my life, that would be it.
Very touching. Very, very touching. But yeah, so another thing too. So basically, from what I heard, in 2006, you broke the motorcycle land speed record at the Bonneville Salt Flats. So could you describe this experience for us?
Well, how much time do we have? Bonneville is a unique place. I was talking with somebody actually about this topic earlier today, and um, it's it should be a seventh wonder of the world, in my opinion, and it certainly is for motorsports. In that you can see the curvature of the earth. The salt beds, used to be as long as 13 miles long for competition. When I was there in '06 and '09, it was 11 miles long, and you can see the curvature of the earth. It's the flattest spot I've ever been on in my life, and it's a natural wonder. And to be able to look down the course or point a vehicle and go as fast as it'll allow you to go, it's an experience that's, you have to stand down on the salt flats to really get the beginning of the understanding of what that's all about. And I thoroughly enjoyed my experiences there. I had, a lot of success in a very short period of time, and it was something that, if given the opportunity tomorrow, I'd probably go do it again.
Indeed. That, very, very great. Very,
Thank you.
very great. And the next question. So what I heard before I interviewed you was you're an inductee for the Hall of Fame class of 2020. Yes?
Yes, I am.
How did you react to being selected? Like, is that like a rare occasion for most motorsports people, or
Well, I think there's a little over 300 inducted members. About I think it's 31 or 32 motorcyclists in over the last 36 years that have been inducted, and for me to be chosen as the one motorcyclist athlete for the 2020 year to be inducted based on what I've done in my career, it's an it's the highest honor that's ever been bestowed upon me, and I don't take that lightly. There's a lot of my heroes have been inducted, a lot of my peers have been inducted. Um, but our championship series that I raced in is now like 67 or 68 years old, and to be the 15th or 16th from that to be inducted is some pretty rare company. And I'm honored that I've been chosen and feel that my accomplishments are worthy of that.
very touching? Finally, all those years paid off. Finally being with the peers, your heroes. Very, very touching indeed. So, what lesson from your racing career did you find that you applied off of the track?
Well, I think the most important thing for anybody to be successful, and you know I I challenge myself, or try to challenge myself every day, is that um we don't always know what we don't know, and finding those that do is as important as finding it out on your own through mistakes. I've never professed to be the smartest guy in the room. Um, but I want to sit next to that smartest guy in the room and soak up as much information as I can. Uh, I've never thought I was the best rider, but I learned how to race, and there was a difference. And I learned how to race by getting beat by many of those same people that have been inducted before me in the Hall of Fame. And uh, any lesson that I can pass on to the next generation is learn. You're going to learn more from finishing second than you will by winning. And I think that's important in anybody's growth.
Very, very touching and wonderful advice to give to young generations. But
Thank you.
again, which leads to the last question to follow up. So the biggest and most important one, I'm sure you get this all the time from many interviewers, but what advice would you give to young people that are interested in pursuing a career in motorsports?
Well, it's very similar to what we just discussed. Um, Motorsports as an athlete is very dangerous. Um, be prepared. Um, be prepared not only to succeed but fail along the way, and ensure that those failures are lessons that you can use to go at it again. I mean, as a racer, you can't give up, and you got to fight for everything in motorsports. Whether you're an athlete, a team owner, a mechanic, a crew chief, you name it, you got to dig, and you got to keep digging, and you got to keep digging, because there's always somebody out there that's more prepared on a given day, and you got to do what you can to ensure that the work that you put in is better than those that you're competing against.
Well, that about wraps up the question I have for the interview. Once again, Chris Carr, thanks so much for taking your time of the day to interview.
My pleasure. Thanks
I
for
wish
having me,
you the
Josh.
best of luck for the Hall of Fame class of 2020.
All right. Thank you.
You're most certainly welcome.